Welcome back to another episode of Talk to My Agent. I'm Max Lowenthal, Director of Agent PM here at Decagon. Excited to be joined today by Perry Ha, VP of Agent Product here at Decagon. If the titles sound familiar, it's because Perry and I have been working together for nearly my entire time here. Perry is sort of the progenitor, the creator of the Agent PM function at Decagon. We'll talk a little bit with him today about how he came to join the company, how he's been thinking about this Agent PM role, the types of folks that make good fit, and honestly, where he sees the industry going. As we've been expanding as a team, we're having more and more conversations with folks on what it means to build AI agents, how businesses can be ready to do that. Perry is sort of at the bleeding edge across the entire industry of folks who are capable of doing this. So Perry, excited to have you. Welcome to the chat.
Thank you. Excited to chat, especially because we got to build this function from the ground up. So excited for this conversation.
Lots of best practices to be shared. Let's start, I guess, all the way back at the beginning. Talk to us a little bit about your background. So before Decagon, where were you coming from? How did you get here? What is the story of Perry Ha?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously right now, VP of Agent Product, helping lead our forward deployed Agent PM team, as well as everything implementations and post-sale. Before this, I founded a company in the real estate prop tech space. So ran that for a couple of years before getting it acquired. Before that, have done stints across the tech spectrum. So was at a growth stage company that went through an IPO, did some early stage VC investing, started my career at Tesla, and my background originally is in mechanical engineering from MIT. So quite varied, but a lot of experiences that I think, frankly, have flowed quite nicely into what we've built today.
So we've got mechanical engineering, we've got electric cars, we've got growth stage IPO company, we've got founding experience. I think the only consistency I'm noticing is inconsistency. How do you end up at Decagon with like that broad of a range?
Yeah, it's a great question. So getting a little bit more into the personal side, after I founded and got my company acquired, I was planning on building another company. And it was actually at that point, it was my wife who said, honey, that's great, but I think that it's you seem a little burnt out. Why don't you take a little time off?
Sure.
Very in character. And so decided to take a few months off. In that time, started to get a little antsy, wanted to build something. And so it was actually one of my friends who at the time was sort of telling me, look, Perry, I know you're going to start another company. That's great. Why don't you just chat with the 3 best founders that you can find and see if it sparks anything? And so he very cleverly introduced me to Jesse and Ashwin. I was incredibly impressed by what they were building and decided to join back when the team was 5 people essentially in a room.
Right. So you were the 6th employee, right? This is when the concept of an agent PM, I think, was a whisper in sort of the wind, so to speak.
Well, it wasn't even the name that we'd given it yet.
Right, exactly. Okay, so you joined the Decagon team relatively early on. Walk us through the sort of like creation of this agent PM process. Is this something you came in and were opinionated on, drawing from previous experience? How did this team kind of come to be from the early days?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it, frankly, came from my founder experience. Working very closely, understanding how to develop a product from the ground up, the team that also works with customers from the ground up. And I think it resonated very strongly with the ethos that we had built at Decagon and what we were seeing actually a lot of our customers asking for. In other words, our customers already know how they want to communicate with their customers, right? They have all of that tribal knowledge of what is the tone that you want to provide, what's the vocabulary that you use. And so at Decagon, we'd already earned a lot of expertise, and we really were able to prescribe best practices around how do you build an agentic system? How do you build a best-in-class AI agent? And so as we went through, we realized we want to build this product and this platform so that our customers can leverage the best source of knowledge that they already have. The folks that are boots on the ground talking to their customers every day, they can then iterate with their systems, and we can sort of play into the best practices and helping them sort of build that AI agent from the ground up.
So if I understand you right, you come in day one, you're talking to the prospective customer. They know their business, but you know AI, right?
Exactly.
And so ultimately for them, you are there to kind of help guide them on this consistent, repeatable journey of what it takes to make AI, drive like a meaningful impact.
Exactly.
Got it. So at this point, the Agent PM team has scaled up pretty significantly. And so I imagine some of that expertise early on comes from your previous work, right? And working with Tesla and these other kind of scaled, operationally focused organizations. But now, as a team, this organization has grown quite a bit. How do you think about the role of Agent PM in a scaled organization? What are the types of frameworks that people are thinking through? Like, what is the type of expertise that you're looking for? And what is the type of training you're giving the team? Stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think especially as we work with many of our clients, what we realize is, again, they already know how they want to talk to their customers. That's fantastic. We will provide the expertise for how we want them to build or how they should build this AI agent. And I think then the biggest thing for us is then not only how do we build this AI agent, but how also should their organization scale, right? A lot of these organizations have been built around how do you work with very distributed, heavy human workforces. And instead now, how do you think about building content that's optimized for an AI agent? How do you think about the program managers that really are going to be focused on working on this AI agent and making it iteratively more impactful rather than just managing a offshore workforce? And so I think that's where a lot of our agent PMs, as we progress, it's gone beyond just how do we think about the technology and deploying this AI agent into your customer experience, but also how does your human org also continue to develop, and how do they up-level in this age of AI?
So it's like a business transformation problem to some degree, right?
Exactly.
So not only are these agent PMs applied AI experts, but they're also almost internal AI consultants to some degree, helping these businesses understand what people they need to staff against these problems, how is this going to change their business, and probably where people go next, right? I imagine most of the conversations you're having are probably 6 to 12 months down the line, sort of future looking in terms of where a business like Hertz Rental Car probably wants to go.
Absolutely. I think when we work with many of our customers, it's not just about, how do we put out this CX, customer support agent. It's also about how do we help them drive towards the true vision of what we want their customer experience to be like, which is a concierge, right? And so for a lot of these, I think people are, at the earliest days envisioning, oh, great, here's this very specific use case that we want to build. That's fantastic. Of course, that's table stakes in our mind. We have a lot of best practices around how you build these, when you build these, what's the sequencing of these based on the volumes and intents that you have. But as we think about the future, a lot of this needs to become a true concierge experience, right? It should be such that when a customer comes in, they don't need to click around within an app to say, here's where I'm going to go to look at my previous billing history, or here's my account history, or here are my orders. Instead, all of that should be conversational. And that's, I think, the vision that we're really excited to drive with many of our customers.
It's this idea of this sort of like multi-purpose AI agent that can really help these people solve a lot of problems.
Exactly.
One of the things that I'm gleaning, right, is the team has built this wealth of knowledge, of expertise, of skill sets that I think ultimately make them really useful in any of these situations. But if I'm a business leader, it's not just about this sort of repeatable process. It's also about what's unique to me and my team. So how do you think about the trade-offs between customizing an AI agent for a single business's experience versus a broad range of customers that obviously you and the team have been responsible for building for?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think really we think about it in like an 80-20 framework, right? In other words, for 80% of the agent build and the way that we partner with many of our organizations, we have very prescribed frameworks, paths, and an implementation roadmap of exactly what's going to happen. However, we always want to reserve about 20%, right? Many of our customers we work with are some of the world's largest enterprises. They have decades of experience working with their customers, and we want to make sure that we're also building in that truly delightful contextualized experience so that when their end customers are talking to our AI agent, they know it's not just they're talking to the general Decagon agent, but they're really talking to, let's take, for example, the Hertz AI agent. And so one of the things I remember even from the earliest days that we talked about with the Hertz team, they have thousands of locations across the world. And one of the biggest things that we wanted to ensure was when somebody lands at O'Hare Airport, they know the hours of these specific locations. They know exactly what to expect. Where is the President's Circle pickup point versus the main desk? And for us to be able to actually have all of that information in the AI agent so that when customers are messaging or calling into our Hertz agent, they have that delight. And I think that's really what we try to drive with many of our customers.
Sure. So it's not spending the time on integrating into the sort of traditional systems or anything like that. It's that extra kind of like go beyond motion that really is what kind of differentiates Hertz and makes them Hertz rather than any other business.
Exactly. I think just like any other human support interaction you might have as well, of course there are always going to be the table stakes things. We bring that out of the box for our customers. It's the little bit of customization or the iteration loops we're able to do with our customers that truly drive that delight that is something where somebody would want to post or talk with their friends about the amazing experience that they had talking to this AI agent.
So here's what's interesting is ultimately I completely agree with you in having done this enough times, right? That I think the difference is made when you contain the context of the individual business itself. That's really where you should focus. But I imagine by doing that repeatedly over time, you also kind of build these really interesting feedback loops that delight almost becomes baked into the 80%. right? Like you start to see these narratives around how do I make sure that my brand tone and voice is captured here, or business hours, or additional really like interesting use cases. How do you think about the feedback loops for customer specific needs into our core product roadmap?
Yeah, that's a fantastic point as well. And I think that's, again, one of the reasons that we feel so passionately about our Agent PM team. They are the tip of the spear that is working with customers day in and day out and are able to understand what are the things that we're seeing on the ground. How are our customers engaging with it? What are the things that we can continue to do to make this more repeatable or more delightful for their end customers? And so I think that's one of the things that we feel quite strongly about. We have a relatively small platform product team. One of the reasons I think that we've been able to actually maintain that is that our agent PMs are the ones who are able to say, here's what we're seeing. We had these guidelines or the way that we might want to customize the AI agent. We need to be able to build that into the product in a way that not only we internally can use, but also our end customers can use. And so that they can make those changes, they can make updates to how the tone or the brand or the empathy in each of these interactions can be.
And so in that way, I guess it's almost one of Decagon's customers' benefits to work with an APM, because ultimately you kind of have that direct line into the product roadmap to ship, whatever it is you're excited about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So one of the things I'm curious about in this sort of forward deployed build is how you define success. Ultimately, for each of these businesses, I'm sure they're evaluating, their AI initiatives in different ways. So how are you and the APM team coming in and defining success metrics with these customers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think with these AI agents that we're building with customers, there's really a mix of both the quantitative and the qualitative, right? In the earliest days, we focus on the quantitative with many of our customers because they are thinking about how they can strengthen their business, right? What are ways that we can handle many of their conversations on their behalf, and how do we do that in a way that maintains a high CSAT score, for example? But as we think about the future of our partnership with these customers, as we think about multi-year partnerships, we really want to think about the qualitative, right? What are the things that move the needle for them as we think about building out their long-term AI concierge? And so I think a great example that I always think about is, for example, with Hertz. You can imagine there are customers who run into issues with their car. They have, the need for roadside assistance. And in these instances, Hertz naturally does a really great job making sure that, their customers can get in touch. But let's say that there, for whatever reason, is a large storm, there's a lot of requirements or a lot of customers calling in. Now we have our 24/7, always available AI agent that's able to take this call, reduce the average handle time, get them the help that they need, and get them routed, and having these customers have peace of mind very quickly. And I think these are the sorts of things that, as we think about truly what does it mean to build not just a CX agent, but an AI concierge for these customers, these are the experiences that I think really shine through.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because it almost feels like the distinction between those two things is like a multi-purpose, right, sort of design. It's a business that's not just saying, hey, how can I save money, which I think transparently matters in the context of any business decision, right? But how can I do so creating the best experience possible along the way? It means showing up in those edge cases. And honestly, I think developing the breadth of what these agents are possible. It's interesting, right? And the customers that you and I have both worked with, the ones who have partnered with Decagon over the course of multiple years have solved their base problems and are now thinking in a forward-looking manner, right? Hertz, Oura Ring, these are businesses that are saying, we understand how to serve people, I think, in the reactive sense. How are we building something that can solve anything at any point in any way?
Absolutely. And I think to build on your point, I know you mentioned that, how do we solve for these edge cases? I think for us, for anyone who works in support and hospitality, they know that these edge cases are the things that will truly drive memorable experiences in the minds of their customers, and that will earn them lifelong loyalty, right? And so in these moments where, customers are in an urgent state, in a compromised state, whatever that may be, or they feel like they're, dysregulated, when we're able to come in and provide that truly delightful, incredibly fast, empathetic experience for their customers, it builds lifelong loyalty. And I think a lot of our customers, as we think about going beyond just the business case, they get extremely excited about that use case.
Right, because ultimately, we are a function of their businesses. I think if we're going to be by an extension, their AI agents are going to be sort of a third party to their brand or an extension of their brand. I think it just needs to make sure that it represents the direction they want to head in.
Absolutely. We're going to be the first touch with a lot of their users. We want to make sure it's a wonderful one.
So I guess, what does it mean to take these AI agents and scale them to millions of customers? So I think we've talked about this. We understand how to measure business success. We understand how the partnership looks. But in practice, like, what are the catches? Like, what does it look like to just build an AI agent that has to go to millions of people at once?
Yeah, I think this is where a lot of the frameworks and the best practices and expertise of how to build these AI agents is really valuable, and what comes from our agent PMs and the benefits of working with our agent PMs. Again, we will come in, just to set an example, we'll work with our customers to understand, you already are working with your customers. What are the common intents that are coming in? What's the associated volume? What are the types of questions within these intents that you would like to continue to manage within your team because of some maybe specific reason? And what are the ones that you want Decagon to own? And so hopefully that just provides a little bit of a context, but we want to make sure that as we go out and as we position our AI agent to their end customers, this is an experience that is exciting, delightful, and really comprehensive from day one, rather than something that needs to be fully built out. It can be something where it's fantastic and we can continue to iterate and grow as we also learn how customers like to engage with these AI agents.
How do you think about scalability here, right? Because one of the big things I know we often talk about here at Decagon is this concept of treating AI agents like software, not demos, right?
Sure.
Or not sort of like a black box. In how you're working with the team, is it those structured AOPs, observability? Like, how are you thinking about the role of that, like self-servedness in the sort of delivery motion that's happening here too?
Yeah, I think a lot of the focus for the team is, not just how do we provide a very interesting demo or something that is showing a customer the art of what's possible, but as we actually build with them, showing them that the art of what's possible is very much within reach, right? And so I think there's a couple things that we always think about when building for this future vision. I think one, the obvious part here is that our AI agent is 24/7 available, always will scale, will always be available for their end customers. Mm-hmm. Two, as we build these flows, unlike performance management or change management that you'll need to do with a large workforce, if we are able to build a fantastic agent operating procedure, we know that that will scale across their entire customer base and will be ready the moment that we're able to send it live. And I think the third is we have a lot of focus on insights, analytics, and observability. In other words, we will always be able to see and tag all conversations immediately after they're completed. We're able to see what was the disposition of these, how did they trend in terms of their performance, their CSAT, and very similarly, are there improvements that we can make if we want to improve our deflection or our CSAT or any other success metric that we've defined?
Well, I'd be remiss in a conversation between the two of us to not talk about Decagon in the context of your role at Decagon, right? And so I'd be curious, you're probably talking to customers pretty frequently here. What are you hearing the most often from folks in terms of why they're going with Decagon instead of maybe another AI platform?
I think the reason that people get very excited about Decagon, and I'll say, in no small part, I hope, is because of the agent PMs that they work with. But sure. I think a large part is also the philosophy that we've taken in being very product first. In other words, we have built our platform in such a way that we can really give the tools and the product and put that in the hands of our customers. And for them to understand with our agent operating procedure framework, they already have all the tribal knowledge that they need of how to build these best-in-class AI agents. We just need them to give them the tools to do so. And I think really the benefit here is our agent PMs, of course, we're not going to expect this person to know how to do this from day one. We want to be able to co-build, work with them in the earliest days, give them that enablement through our Decagon University curriculum, and then what we see with many of our customers is they're off to the races and they're able to build this on their own.
So I think that makes a ton of sense. What then differentiates Decagon in a market that feels almost like increasingly crowded across the board?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for many of our customers that come to work with us, the thing that they very much recognize is they all know that their company, their policies, and their enterprise is complicated. They've built up a lot of bespoke processes, things that are quite complex that require buy-in from technical teams, from product teams, from business teams. And I think what they find with Decagon is, with this complexity, they want control. And I think for a lot of people, they assume that those are two different concepts. But with our agent operating procedure, and I think the way that we also work in tandem, in partnership with them from the agent PM side, they find that that's actually, they're not exclusive, right? They can work on those together. And so I think for a lot of our customers, what they understand is in the earliest days, they get very excited when they realize they can co-build these with us, and they see basically a path to the future where they can continue to iterate and build on these AI agents.
Right. It's almost not having to make a trade-off between control, complexity, and then I guess consistency is kind of like the third point within the pyramid, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think ultimately, if you're a business at scale, you can't really afford to sacrifice any of those things, right? If you don't know what's going on, you can't be responsible for the outcomes. If you can't build to meet your business's needs, it's not a useful product, right? And so ultimately, I think across the board, making sure that people are getting that repeatable experience of driving value.
Absolutely. And I think the one thing I'd actually add, maybe to make the triangle into a square,
Let's do it.
Is also transparency and iteration, right? In other words, what we've talked about so far in that triangle is how do you build this AI agent? But just like any training program or just like any human, we don't stop as soon as we're off to the races. We always think about how do we improve? How do we get better? What are the things that we can iterate on? And so I think that's also the part that we work very closely with our customers on is we built a very robust suite of insights tools, analytics tools, observability tools, and we want to make sure that our customers can leverage that very aggressively to understand how do you continue to improve.
Cool. I guess closing thought for you then, where do we go from here? We're building these AI agents, we're helping drive value for people. What is the future vision of, I think, what Decagon is able to deliver for a lot of these folks?
I think this is a future that we're all really excited about. I think I just say this on behalf of us and many members of the team is I think so many folks have come to expect that great service comes with a high level of spend or incredible business loyalty. I think what the future that we're really excited about is every individual, every customer gets a concierge level experience with high touch, high empathy, and great context for every business that they go to. And I think that's the future that we're building towards at Decagon and the one that we ultimately want to provide for many of our customers.
Cool. Well, Perry, thanks for coming on the show. Much appreciated. Always interesting to talk shop, take some conversations out of the hallway, put them into the podcast. So good to chat. Thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely.